everyone, welcome to this video about how to divide negative numbers. I believe that everything in life, including math, is a lot easier when you love yourself. And I'd like to encourage you today to give yourself a little bit of love by choosing kindness. Whether that's choosing to be kind to someone else, choosing to be kind to an animal or a pet, or giving kindness to yourself for exactly where you are in this moment. Whatever it is, choose kindness. Then take 2 deep breaths, give yourself a little bit of love, and let's make this math easy. Alright, so when you're dividing negative numbers, the first thing that you do is you divide the absolute values of the numbers. So you kind of just ignore whether they're positive or negative, and you divide the numbers like normal. And then after you've done that, you're going to determine the sign of your answer based on whether or not the signs of the individual parts of the problem were the same or different. So if you have 2 positive numbers divided, your answer is going to be positive, like 27 divided by 3 equals positive 9. If you have 2 negatives, those are also the same sign, and so your answer is going to be a positive answer. Like negative 48 divided by negative 8 is a positive 6. And I know that can be a little bit counterintuitive, so I'm going to show you why that is the case in this video. But basically, if they're the same sign, then you're going to have a positive answer. If they're different signs, like negative 46 divided by 7 or 12 divided by negative 3, then your answer is going to be negative. So the same signs have positive answers, different signs have negative answers. And the reason why this is because of how division works. So if I have positive 27, which I've drawn here on the board, that I have a group of 27 positive numbers, or positive signs, and I split that into 3 groups, like this, you can see that one group has positive 9, and that's why 27 divided by 3 is positive 9, which is pretty self-explanatory. There's no negatives involved. If I have negative 56 divided by 7, then that means that I'm splitting up these 56 into 7 groups. And if I split them up into 7 groups, each group has 8 in it, and there's 8 negatives, and so that means that the 56 negatives divided by 7 equals a negative 8. Now, if I have something like 12 divided by negative 3, this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because you're splitting the 12 positives into 3 groups. However, these groups are negative groups, which means that you're going to take the opposite of what is in that group. So 12 divided by a normal 3 or a positive 3 would be 4, but 12 divided by a negative 3 is going to be the opposite of that, which is a negative 4. And this is the reason why a negative divided by a negative is a positive, because if you split up negative 48 into 8 groups, you have 6 negatives, but because it's divided by a negative 8, that means you're going to do the opposite of that amount. And so negative 48 split into negative 8 groups is going to equal a positive 6, because negative 48 divided by just a normal 8 would be negative, but if you do the opposite of that, then it's going to be a positive 6. And so when you're dividing negative decimals, you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to have to follow the rules for decimal division to make sure you get the correct number. So like in this situation, you have a positive divided by a negative, and those are opposite signs. So that means that your answer is going to be negative. And then to figure out the number, you just say, okay, well, if I do 15.25 and I divide that by 2.5, I'm ignoring the negative sign because I already know my answer is going to be negative. So I'm just dividing the absolute values. And I say, okay, well, I can't divide by 2.5, but if I move the decimal over in both spots, then that will allow me to do the decimal division. So I'd say, okay, 25 can't go into 1, can't go into 15 either, but it can go into 152, and it goes in 6 times. And then 6 times 25 is 150. When I subtract that, I get a remainder of 2, bring down the 5, and the decimal is right here, so that means the decimal is going to have to be there in my answer as well. And I say 25 goes into 25 just once, and there's no remainder. And so that would be my divided answer. So I know that 15.25 divided by negative 0.25, negative 2.5 would equal negative 6.1. And that's how I would divide negative decimals. If they were both negatives, then my answer would be a positive because a negative times a negative is a positive. So if I'm dividing negative fractions like this, then I would do the same process. I would say, okay, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so my answer is going to be positive. And then I would follow the rules for fraction division. So I'd say, okay, 2/3 times the reciprocal, which is 9/8, that equals 18/24. And that can be reduced by dividing by 6, which would give me 3/4. And so my answer is positive 3/4. So you can use the multiplying by the reciprocal method, or I could have also figured that out by doing the zigzag method, where you do 2 times 9 gives me the 18, 3 times 8 gives me the 24, and then I would still reduce the same and still get my answer. So you can use either method for fraction division, but that's how that works. And you can even use this method when you're simplifying fractions that have variables, like in algebra. So like in this situation, you would say, okay, if I have negative 28 divided by negative 4, that's going to equal a positive 7, because 28 divided by 4 is 7, and a negative divided by a negative equals a positive. And so I'd end up with positive 7 x squared over y, and that would allow me to simplify this algebraic expression. So to summarize, the way that you divide negative numbers is you divide the absolute values of the dividend and the divisor. So you kind of ignore the signs, divide the two numbers, and then you determine the sign of the quotient, or the answer, based on whether the signs are the same or whether they're different. So if they're the same, like these two situations, then you're going to end up with a positive answer. If they're different, like in these two situations, then your answer is going to be negative. And that's how you divide negative numbers.
I hope this video was helpful. Let me know how easy this was for you in the comments below, and then subscribe for more easy math videos. You may also want to check out my negative numbers playlist. And if you'd like more help with your math homework and dividing negative numbers, you can go to mathtutoringonline.com to ask a question or book a one-on-one tutoring session. See you soon!